There is something happening in your life right now that you have not told anyone about. Not fully. Maybe you have hinted at it. Maybe you have prayed about it in broken sentences at 2 in the morning when the house is quiet and your mind will not stop. Maybe you have held it so tight for so long that you are not even sure what you are afraid of anymore. You just know something feels heavy, something feels uncertain. Something in you is waiting for a word, a real word, not a motivational quote, not a phrase on a coffee mug, something alive, something true, something that reaches past the noise and lands directly in your chest. I want to show you something today. Something written thousands of years ago that I genuinely believe was written for exactly where you are sitting right now. Not in a vague, poetic kind of way. In a specific, personal, almost uncomfortably precise kind of way. Because the God who inspired these words is not distant. He is not unaware of your situation. He is not confused by your fear. And he is not silent. Before we go any further, I just want you to take a breath. Slow down. You came here for a reason. Whether you clicked this video on purpose or it appeared in your feed by what felt like chance, I want you to consider that maybe this moment was arranged. Maybe something bigger than an algorithm brought you here. Just stay with me, because what I am about to share with you from the book of Isaiah is going to change the way you see your fear, your name, your story, and your God. If this message is speaking to you, subscribe. Let me start by painting a picture, because context matters. When the prophet Isaiah wrote the words of chapter 43, he was not writing to people who were doing fine. He was not writing to people who had everything figured out, who felt strong, who felt close to God and full of faith. He was writing to a people who were broken, a people who had been scattered, a people who had experienced loss on a scale that is hard to imagine. They had watched their homeland fall apart. They had been carried away from everything they knew. They were in exile, and not just physical exile. There was a deeper exile happening, an exile of the soul. They had begun to wonder if God had forgotten them. They had started to ask the questions that you maybe have asked quietly in your own dark moments. Does he still see me? Does he still care? Did I go too far? Is it too late? Am I too lost? And it is into that exact atmosphere, into that exact heaviness, into that exact fog of fear and doubt and grief that God speaks. And what he says is extraordinary. What he says is not a rebuke. It is not a lecture. It is not a list of conditions. It is an announcement, a declaration, a personal and passionate statement of love and commitment. The very first thing God says in Isaiah chapter 43 is this: do not fear. And I want to sit with those 3 words for a moment before we move forward. Because we live in a world that has a complicated relationship with fear. On one hand, fear is everywhere. It lives in the news cycle. It lives in medical diagnoses. It lives in financial uncertainty and broken relationships, and the quiet dread you feel when you lie down at night and your brain starts running through every worst-case scenario. Fear is powerful. Fear is loud. Fear can feel like the most honest thing in the room sometimes. On the other hand, we are told constantly to not be afraid. And if you have ever been genuinely afraid, genuinely anxious, genuinely overwhelmed, you know how hollow that can sound when someone just says it casually, do not be afraid. End of quote. As if you can just decide to stop. As if the fear is a light switch you can flip off whenever you feel like it. And so when we come to this verse and God says, do not fear, the temptation might be to nod along and then feel quietly guilty because you are still afraid, as if the command itself is somehow a judgment on your weakness. But here is what I need you to understand. Here is what changes everything about those 3 words. God does not just say, do not fear, and leave you there. He does not give you a command without a foundation. He does not issue instructions without giving you a reason. He follows those words immediately with something that is the entire basis for why fear does not have to have the final say in your life. He says, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. Let those words land for a moment. You are mine. Not you were mine once, before you made all those mistakes. Not you could be mine, if you can just get yourself together. Not you might be mine, if you pray the right way, or live the right way, or feel the right things. You are mine. Present tense, right now, in this moment, exactly as you are, as like, / not. With the fear you are carrying, with the failures you are still ashamed of, with the questions you cannot answer, and the wounds that have not fully healed. You are mine. This is not sentimental language. This is covenant language. This is the language of belonging. The same language a good father uses when he looks at his child who has wandered and gotten lost and come home dirty and exhausted and ashamed. You are mine. That is what he says. Not what happened to you. Not why did you do that. Not let me see how bad it is first. You are mine. And then there is the line that I want to spend some real time on, because I think it is one of the most personally powerful lines in the entire Old Testament. He says, I have called you by name. Not I have called your category. Not I have called your demographic. Not I have called people who are suffering, or people who are anxious, or people who have made a certain kind of mistake. He says, I have called you by name. Do you understand what that means? God knows your name, the actual name your parents gave you, the name your closest friends call you when they want to make sure they have your full attention. He knows that name, and he uses it. He does not look at you as a statistic in a vast sea of human suffering. He does not see a face in a crowd. He sees you. He calls to you specifically. He has always been calling you specifically. There is something deeply moving about being called by name. Think about the last time someone in a room full of people said your name out loud, specifically to get your attention. There is a small shift that happens inside you. Something in you responds. Something in you recognizes, that is for me. That is not for anyone else. That is specifically, personally, intentionally for me. That is what God is doing in this passage. He is saying your name. He is leaning across all of history and all of eternity and all of your noise and your fear and your doubt. And he is saying your name because you are not lost in the crowd to him. You never were. Now I want to show you what comes next in Isaiah chapter 43, because it builds on this foundation in a way that is so practical and so real that it might take your breath away. God says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Notice what God does not say here. He does not say, you will never face waters. He does not say, I will remove all the fire from your path. He says when, not if. When you pass through the waters. When you walk through the fire. He acknowledges, plainly and honestly, that hard things are coming, that hard things may already be here, that the path of a faithful life is not a path free of storms, but the presence changes everything. I will be with you. You will not be swept away. The fire will not consume you. This is not a promise of exemption. It is a promise of accompaniment. It is not God saying, I will make sure nothing hard ever touches you. It is God saying, I will be in the hard thing with you. I will be in the water. I will be in the fire. I will not stand on the shore and watch. I will not call to you from a safe distance. I will be right there, in the middle of it, with you. And I want you to think about your fire right now. The thing that feels like it is burning. The thing that feels like too much. The diagnosis that came back with bad news. The relationship that is falling apart, even though you have tried everything you know to try. The financial pressure that does not seem to have an end in sight. The grief that sits in the middle of your chest like a stone. The loneliness that follows you everywhere, even when you are surrounded by people. Whatever your fire is, whatever your water is, God is saying the same thing to you that he said to his people thousands of years ago in exile. I will be with you. You will not be swept away. The fire will not consume you. This is the character of God on full display. Not a God who is far away and uninvolved, Not a God who set the universe in motion and then stepped back to watch. A God who steps into the fire. A God who wades into the waters. A God who is present in the most difficult and the most frightening moments of your life. And here is where everything starts to point forward. Here is where Isaiah chapter 43, as beautiful and powerful as it is, begins to foreshadow something even greater. Because centuries after Isaiah wrote these words, there came a man who embodied every single one of them. A man who was God in flesh, who walked into the waters of baptism, who walked through the fire of betrayal and arrest and mockery and crucifixion, who descended into the deepest darkness that exists, and who came out the other side. His name is Jesus. And every promise God makes in Isaiah chapter 43 finds its ultimate fulfillment in him. When God says, "I have redeemed you," he is pointing toward the cross, because redemption is not just a word, it is an act. It costs something. In the ancient world, to redeem someone meant to pay a price to buy them back from captivity. And that is exactly what Jesus did. He paid a price to buy you back. Not because you had earned it, not because you had made yourself worthy of it, but because he wanted you, because you are his. The price of your redemption was the life of the Son of God. That is not a small thing. That is not a metaphor. That is the weight of love pressing itself out in the most costly act in all of history. When God says, "I have called you by name," he is pointing toward Jesus, who knows his sheep by name. In the Gospel of John, chapter 10, Jesus says, "His sheep hear his voice, and he knows them, and they follow him." He knows them, not knows of them, not knows about them, knows them personally, intimately, by name. Jesus does not call out to a crowd and say, "Whoever wants to can come." He calls individuals. He called Peter by name. He called Matthew by name. He stood at the tomb of Lazarus and called Lazarus by name. He stood outside the tomb on resurrection morning and said, "Mary." Just that. Her name. One word. And she turned and knew. He is saying your name too. Even now, even here, even in the middle of everything you are carrying, he is saying your name. When God says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you," he is pointing toward a Savior who himself passed through suffering that he did not deserve, so that you and I would never have to face our ultimate fears alone. He did not stay in heaven. He came down. He took on flesh. He entered the mess. He sat with people who were broken. He touched people who were untouchable. He wept at the graveside of a friend. He knew exhaustion and hunger and rejection and grief. He knows what it feels like to be afraid in a human body. He knows what it feels like to cry out to God in the darkness and wonder if the morning is coming. And he made it through. And because he made it through, so can you. Not in your own strength, not by gritting your teeth and refusing to feel what you feel, but by the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, which according to the letter to the Romans chapter 8, lives in everyone who belongs to him. That same power, that same resurrection life, available to you right now, in your fear. I want to pause here for just a moment and ask you something gently. When was the last time you actually let yourself be known by God? Not performed for him, not presented your best self to him, not showed up to prayer with the version of yourself you thought he would find acceptable. When was the last time you just came to him as you actually are, afraid and tired and confused, and maybe a little angry and deeply unsure of what comes next? Because here is what I find so striking about Isaiah chapter 43. God does not wait for his people to get themselves together before he speaks this word to them. He does not say, "Clean yourself up, and then I will tell you not to fear." He speaks into the middle of the exile. He speaks into the middle of the fear. He speaks into the middle of the shame and the wandering and the wondering if he even still cares. That is the kind of God he is. He comes to you where you are, not where you think you should be, not where you were 5 years ago when your faith felt stronger. Right here, right where you are watching this, or listening to this in your car or your kitchen, or your quiet bedroom at the end of a long and difficult day. He meets you here. There is a verse later in Isaiah chapter 43 where God says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." I love that word perceive. Do you not perceive it? Because sometimes God is already moving, and we cannot see it yet because we are too focused on how dry the wasteland looks. We are staring at the desert and asking God where the water is, not realizing He has already sent it. It is already coming. The streams are already on their way. That is a word for someone today. The thing you have been praying about, the thing you have almost stopped praying about because it has been so long and nothing seems to be moving, God might already be doing something you cannot perceive yet. The wilderness does not mean He has forgotten you. The dry season does not mean the water is not coming. Sometimes the new thing God is doing happens beneath the surface before it ever breaks through into the visible, like roots going deeper before the plant grows taller. Like winter doing its quiet work before spring. Do not give up on the perception. Stay open, stay watching, stay expectant. Not in a desperate, white-knuckled way, but in a quietly confident way, the way someone waits for sunrise, not panicking because the sun has not come up yet, just trusting that it will, because it always does. There is also something in this passage that we often miss, and it is tucked into a phrase near the beginning. God says, "I have redeemed you." And then later He says, "Since you are precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you." Did you catch that? Precious and honored in my sight. Not precious and honored when you are performing well. In my sight, in God's sight, the one who sees everything, the one who sees the parts of you that you hide from everyone else, the one who knows every failure you have never told anyone about, every version of yourself you are ashamed of, that God says you are precious and honored in His sight because He loves you. This is not about your performance. This is not about your worthiness as measured by what you have done or not done. This is about who He is and what He has decided about you. And what He has decided is that you are worth knowing, worth calling by name, worth redeeming, worth stepping into the fire for. The cross was not just a philosophical gesture. It was God saying, "You are worth this much. You matter that much. You are that precious in my sight." Let that be a word to the part of you that still does not fully believe it. The part of you that has been told in various ways throughout your life that you are not enough, that you are too much, that you are hard to love, that your mistakes define you, that the broken places in you are too broken to ever be made whole. Let the voice of Isaiah chapter 43 come into those places like water coming into dry ground. Precious, honored, mine. Now I want to bring Jesus into even sharper focus, because I do not want this to simply be an inspiring passage of the Old Testament that encourages you for a moment and then fades away. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 3, when Jesus was baptized and came up out of the water, the heavens opened, and a voice spoke. And the voice said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Do you see the resonance? The Father calling the Son by name, publicly, over water, the declaration of belonging, the announcement of love, and that same love is extended to you through what Jesus did. According to the letter to the Galatians chapter 3, those who belong to Christ are children of God, co-heirs with Christ. If that same voice calls Jesus beloved Son, then that same belovedness reaches to you through Him. In the Gospel of John chapter 15, Jesus says, "I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you." Friends, that is not a casual word. That is a word of deep intimacy and trust and mutual knowing. He calls you friend. He calls you by name. He brings you into the inner circle of what the Father is doing, not as a spectator, as a friend. And in the most tender moment of the resurrection narrative, in the Gospel of John, chapter 20, There is a woman standing outside an empty tomb, weeping. She thinks someone has taken the body of Jesus, and she does not know where they have put him. Through her tears, she looks into the tomb and then turns and sees someone she does not recognize. She thinks it is the gardener. She asks if he knows where the body is. And then this person says one word, just one word, her name, Mary. And in that moment, everything changes. She turns and she knows it is Jesus, alive, standing in front of her, saying her name. That is your Jesus. That is the one who walks through the fire with you. That is the one who calls you by name. That is the one who finds you weeping in your darkest and most confusing moment and says your name in a voice you recognize. A voice that says, I am here. It is me. Do not be afraid. He is still doing that. He is still saying names. He is saying yours. I want to speak now to whoever is watching this and feeling like they have drifted too far, like the distance between where you are and where you think you should be with God is just too great to cross. Like you have been away too long, or done too much, or let too many years pass in the wrong direction. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there is this quiet belief that maybe the promise of Isaiah chapter 43 applies to other people, better people, people who did not make the choices you made or go down the road you went down. And so while you appreciate the words, you hold them at arm's length, because some part of you does not believe they are actually for you. I want to address that directly and with all the kindness I have. That thought that you are somehow beyond the reach of this promise that is not from God, that is the voice of fear, trying to convince you that fear gets the last word. Do not listen to it, because look at what else God says in Isaiah chapter 43. He says, I, even I, am he who blots out your transgressions for my own sake and remembers your sins no more. He remembers your sins no more. Not he pretends they did not happen. Not he holds them against you quietly while saying he has forgiven you. He remembers them no more. That is the radical nature of the grace of God. It does not just cover the mistakes, it releases them completely, permanently, for his own sake, not just yours. So that thing you did, that season you are ashamed of, that version of yourself you would rather no one ever knew about, God has not cataloged it and stored it away, waiting for the right moment to use it against you. He has let it go. He has called you by name, and he has let it go. And he invites you to let it go too. Coming back is always possible. It is never too late. The Father, in the parable that Jesus told in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, sees the returning Son while he is still a long way off. And what does he do? He runs. He does not wait at the door with his arms crossed and his expression tight, preparing a list of grievances. He runs. He throws his arms around him. He calls for celebration. Because this son of mine was lost and is found, was dead and is alive again. That is the heart of the Father toward you, running, even now, even after everything, even after the distance, running toward you with arms open. I want to give you a moment here, just a quiet moment, because maybe you have been listening or watching this whole time and something has been shifting inside you. Maybe something that felt very locked up is starting to feel a little bit less locked. Maybe the fear that has been so loud is just a fraction quieter right now. Maybe you feel something that you have not felt in a while. Maybe the word that describes it is seen. Or maybe it is hope. Or maybe it is just a small, quiet beginning. Whatever you are feeling right now, do not rush past it. Let it be what it is. This is how God often works. Not in dramatic, overwhelming moments, though sometimes those happen too, but often in quiet, internal shifts. A softening, a loosening, a turning, a small and tender recognition that he has been here all along, that he never stopped knowing your name, that the exile is not the end of the story. If you want to talk to him right now, you do not need special words. You do not need to feel ready. You do not need to have it all figured out. You can simply say, in whatever way comes naturally to you, I am here. I am afraid. I want to believe this is for me. Help me believe it. And that prayer, as simple and as broken as it might feel, is enough. He hears it. He is already responding. There is a phrase that the Apostle Paul uses in his letter to the Philippians chapter 4 that I think is one of the most practical and most profound things ever written about anxiety and fear. He says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, not peace that makes sense given your circumstances, not peace that you can logically explain or rationally justify, peace that goes beyond understanding, peace that shows up in the middle of things that should be impossible to feel peaceful about, peace that stands guard over your heart and your mind. That kind of peace is available to you, not because you have solved all your problems, not because everything has been resolved, but because you have turned to the one who holds everything in his hands, and you have said, "This is yours, and I trust you with it." And here is what I want you to hold on to. When someone truly receives this promise, when they genuinely let it into the deepest place, something shifts. When you actually trust Jesus with your fear, peace starts to take up more room. Clarity begins to return. The thing that felt like a wall starts to feel more like a door. I cannot promise you exactly what that looks like for your specific situation, but I can tell you this: trusting God with your fear is never wasted. Leaning into his promises never leaves you worse off. Something inside you begins to breathe again. That is the invitation of Isaiah chapter 43. Not just comfort, not just reassurance, but an invitation to a way of living. A way of moving through the world that is grounded in the knowledge that you are known, you are loved, you are redeemed, you are called by name, and you are never, not for a single moment in your life, ever alone, because he is with you in the water. He is with you in the fire. He was with you in every moment of your past that you wish you could undo, and he is already in every moment of your future that you are afraid of. There is no place you can go where his presence cannot reach you. There is no depth of fear or failure or grief that is deeper than his love. And that is not empty comfort. That is not a cliche. That is the testimony of the cross and the empty tomb. That is the message that changed the world, and that is still changing lives and still speaking into dark and quiet moments just like yours, right now, wherever you are. So let me ask you one more time, as gently as I know how to ask it. Will you let this be for you? Not for people who deserve it more, not for people who have it more together. For you, exactly as you are, in the middle of your real life, with all its real fear and its real questions and its real pain. Will you let the voice that says, "Do not fear, I have redeemed you, I have called you by name, you are mine"? Will you let that voice be the loudest voice you listen to, even if it takes practice? Even if it takes time, even if you have to come back to this passage every single day and let it work on you like water working on stone, it is worth it. He is worth it. You are worth it. Isaiah chapter 43 was not written for a perfect people. It was written for a broken people in exile. It was written for people who were afraid and far from home and not sure God still cared. It was written for people who had made mistakes and suffered consequences and lost things they loved. It was written for them. And through the miracle of a living and breathing Word of God, it is written for you. The fire will not consume you. The waters will not sweep you away. You are precious and honored in His sight. He loves you. He has redeemed you. He has called you by your name. You are His, and He says, "Do not fear. Do not fear." Let that land today. Let it go deeper than it has gone before. Let it move from your head into your heart, from your heart into your bones, from your bones into the way you wake up tomorrow morning and face the day, less afraid, more anchored, quietly, genuinely, deeply hopeful, because you are not navigating this life alone. You never were. Jesus is with you. He has always been with you, and He always will be. That is the promise. That is the word. That is Isaiah chapter 43. And it was written for you. Like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to help us grow and spread Jesus.